EVs and IVs are about the most important thing to learn when preparing to play Pokemon competitively. I get it if you're new to it and you think it's mostly nerd stuff, balancing all these hidden numbers and natures and yada yada yada, and well, you're not wrong, but it is still important. If my max EV, max IV Alakazam faces off against your plain old regular Alakazam, not only will mine attack before yours will and get off a hit first, but it'll also be able to kill you with a single Shadow Ball, whereas yours will only be doing a measly 60%. These EVs and IVs and natures are mostly hidden stats that can improve your Pokemon strength enormously. I'm going to break them down here for you just to show you exactly how and why. First, there's IVs. These individual values are stats that every Pokemon is born with, which they can inherit from their parent Pokemon. They're kind of like a random value added to every one of your Pokemon's basic stats, like attack and HP and special defense and speed, whatever. In Pokemon Showdown, we just give every Pokemon the maximum amount of IVs possible, so 31 to every stat, just to make sure that every Pokemon is on an even playing field, unless for some reason you want to intentionally lower the stat. For example, making a super slow Ferrothorn's Gyro Ball hit even harder. So yeah, this is a super simple change to make if you're just playing online. You just type it in and boom, it's set. Hell, it's even got defaults to maxing it out on Showdown, so it just automatically does that. But if you're playing the console games and trying to actually raise and breed these Pokemon within these stats, it is a massive amount of effort. Like hours and hours of meticulous breeding so that your Dragon Ball doesn't lose any speed ties with other Dragon Balls, for example. I've placed a link to another video in the top right here that can guide you through this process. I don't want to dwell on IVs too long because they really have very little actual effect on competitive Pokemon. You really just sort of assume that everyone's got them maxed out. But in previous generations, the move Hidden Power was extremely important. This was a base 60 to 70 power move that can be changed to any typing that you want. So for example, you've got a Jolteon and you could really benefit from an ice move to hit all these ground types that are swapping in on you for free. Well, you could just use a Hidden Power Ice and they'll be frozen in their tracks before long. I mention this because the way you determine the typing of Hidden Power is a very particular combination of IVs. So if you have an IV spread like this, for example, just instead of the regular max 31s across the board, it'll give you a Hidden Power Fire. True, you are slightly lowering your Pokemon stats doing this, but the difference is like infinitesimal, and having a good Hidden Power move is absolutely worth it. Once again, if you're playing on console, this can be very difficult to figure out on your own. So I've also provided a link to these IV calculators for hidden powers in the description below. However, us glorious lazy bastards on Showdown have it all figured out. We have it all made, because all you need to do is just put the hidden power into your Pokemon set and the team builder will automatically adjust your Pokemon's IVs to match this desired hidden power. Okay, so I just talked about IVs more there than I have pretty much in my entire life. So let's move on and get to the more interesting of the two hidden stats, which is EVs, or effort values. Unlike IVs, which is something your Pokemon is born with and can't really be changed, the EVs are how you train your Pokemon. So to use the example of the console games, every Pokemon that you beat in the game will strengthen your own Pokemon and give a hidden boost to one of its basic stats. So if you beat a Growlithe, it will grant your Charmander 1 attack EV. Or if you beat a Tentacool, it will boost your special defense by 1 EV. This is kind of like an anime protagonist learning and stealing moves from their opponents as they go throughout their journey, training and getting stronger and all that. You can find out what EVs an enemy Pokemon gives by checking out their Bulbapedia page. So most of the time when you're playing through the game normally, you'll usually earn a pretty even distribution of EVs because you'll be fighting such a broad range of Pokemon. But if you end up spending a ton of time training in like Mount Moon, for example, and you're beating a ton of Geodudes, that Charmander is going to find itself specifically with a much higher defense stat. The effect these EVs can have on your Pokemon stats is actually really significant. You can earn up to 508 EV points to distribute across your Pokemon stats in any combination you want. However, you can distribute a maximum of 252 of these EV points into one specific stat at a time. So for example, you can max out at 252 attack, or you can distribute the 508 total EVs completely evenly across the board. So for example, you can give 252 to attack and to speed, and then put the 4 remaining into special defense, or you could do like 100 across the board, or what have you. Just however you distribute them doesn't matter, but they max out at 252. So if you go back to that little Charmander, once he's fully grown up to be a Charizard, if you max out his attack EVs, he can end up with a 30% higher attack stat than if he didn't have any. Or here's another way to put it. Charizard has a really good base speed stat of 100, and it can outspeed most other Pokemon as a result. However, if he doesn't put any EVs into his speed, an enemy Tyranitar with a really low base speed stat of 61, if he does max out his speed, he can outspeed the Charizard and attack first in a battle. This is why you'll often see the speedy attacky Pokemon maxing out their speed, so that their trainers have a perfect idea of everyone who they can and can't outspeed. This is especially important around whatever speed tiers exist in the meta, But trust me, that topic is a whole other can of worms just waiting to be opened. But I'm actually working on a video explaining that right now, so stay tuned. But otherwise, as you can see, these EV stats are really important when building a competitive team. They make speed demons faster, they make strong wall breakers hit harder, and they make tanky walls even more bulky. The decision then becomes, how do you want to distribute these stats? Maybe I want my Starmie really fast and strong, so it's a really speedy and effective attacker. Or maybe I want it really bulky and defensive, so I can switch it in a lot, make use of its recover, and get off a lot of rapid spins before it dies. Both are viable choices that you'll have to make when distributing these EV points. Some top players actually have extremely specific IV spreads. So for example, maybe like I'll give my choice banded Ckwnce 16 speed EVs so that I can narrowly outspeed a Clefable who hasn't put any EVs into speed because they have the same sort of base speed. But then I'll give it 212 attack EVs so I can just barely one-hit KO that defensive Clefable with Iron Head. But I'm also worried about, like, I don't know, the Dragapult matchup. So give it 140 special defense EVs so I can just barely live a Shadow Ball. If you're willing to put the work into the damage calculator and figure all this stuff out, and you know exactly what threats you want your Pokemon to be able to beat and all of that stuff, this sort of overcalculation is actually really helpful. But don't get me wrong, definitely not necessary to succeed, don't worry. I just mentioned that so you can get an idea of how nitty and gritty can really get if you're interested. For the most part, if you're just starting out, you can just look up the Pokemon's most common sets on Ckwnce's Battle Pokedex and just use that. Usually your speedy attackers will just have, maxed out speed so they win all the matchups they should, and max their primary attacking stats, so attack on a physical attacker or a special attack on a special attacker, and then like the remaining 4 stats on a defense stat or something. For bulkier attacking Pokemon, it's usually a toss-up between putting stats into their speed so they can beat other slow Pokemon around their speed tier, or maxing out a defensive stat so they can take a hit first and then hit back even harder. The tanky walls usually have nearly maxed out HP, and then put the rest into their other defenses depending on what their job is for your team. So for example, if you got a Shiinotic whose only job is to wall out a Zeraora, you better believe in putting every single point I can into his physical defense. But for Mandibuzz, whose main job is to wall Choice Specs Dragapult, that's all going into special defense, baby. Or maybe you have a Corviknight who's got a little bit of both, so you can counter everyone, albeit less efficiently and less specifically. Understanding this last bit is important because it can lead to situations like this, where I U-turn on my opponent's Clefable, and notice it does a decent amount of damage for a U-turn. This tells me that the Clefable probably has a maximum special defensive investment, but not physical defense. So then I can go to my Obstagoon and one-hit KO it safely with a Guts boosted Facade. That would be a terrible play if I hadn't scattered it out, because if it was physically defensive, the Clefable could have tanked that hit and hit me back with a super effective Moonblast. Final thing I want to bring up is natures. These are more than just giving your Pokemon in the games a little bit of a quirky personality or something like that. Every nature in the game gives your Pokemon a 10% boost to one stat and a 10% reduction to another stat. So for example, if your Charizard is adamant, his maximum possible attack stat isn't 267 like it would be otherwise, it's now 293. For most Pokemon, you usually choose one stat that you want to boost and choose the attacking type it isn't using for the debuff. So like a Conkeldurr is never going to use a special attacking move, so you can make it adamant, which increases its attack and lowers the special attack completely guilt-free. Or even a defensive Pokemon like Toxapex. You can make it bold, increasing its defense, but lowering its attack, because once again, the only attack it's ever going to be using is a special attack like Scald anyways. There's no point in having any attack investment. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this video. There's a lot of nuance to be found in EVs and maxing spreads, so definitely get mixing in the Team Builder kitchen and see what you can cook up. Take it easy, and see you next time.